chance to come back without worrying everyone. This seemed very odd behaviour from her mother, who'd never been the kind of person to suffer in silence. "So you've been worrying on your own?" There was a brief silence at the other end of the phone. "Mum, are you okay?"
"Yes, darling, I'm fine," her mother said. And she sounded fine. Too fine, almost drunk. Stella would have anticipated much more drama, a little more sobbing and neediness, and actually she wondered if that was the kettle she could hear being flicked on in the background. Stella frowned.
"Is it something to do with Sonny? Is that why he's left? Has Sonny been a pain?"
"Not at all. Your father and Sonny have got on very well, actually. I only told Sonny he'd gone this morning too. Teenagers need their sleep, don't they?"
Stella scrunched her eyes tight. The idea of her son and her father getting on well was too much at this point. "And have you rung Dad?" Stella asked.
"Yes, straight to answer phone. He's left a little note telling us not to worry."
Stella pressed her hand to her forehead. She was really tired. They had left at 5 to avoid the weekend holiday traffic down to the Cornish coast, but had stopped once already for Rosie to be sick in a Starbucks cup after secretly shoveling all the sweets meant for the 5-hour journey into her mouth in the first 20 minutes.
"Look, Daddy, a whole Haribo bear," she'd said, quite gleeful.
The traffic report on the radio suggested that this current tailback was because a caravan had jackknifed further up the A303. "What does the note say?"
"Just that he's gone away for a bit."
"But where?"
"To be honest, darling, I haven't the foggiest."
Something really wasn't right in her mother's reaction. "Mum, is there something you're not telling me?" Stella said, glancing across at Jack, who was doing all sorts of faces back at her, trying to get the gist of what was going on.
"No, darling, nothing."
Stella nodded, wary, disliking the feeling of uncertainty that had settled over her. "OK, well, we'll be at yours in about 3 hours, I reckon."
"Don't drive too fast,"
said her mother. "Unlikely with this traffic," Stella said, then added a goodbye. When she hung up the phone, Jack said, "Where's your dad gone?" Stella shook her head, chucking her phone into her bag. "She doesn't know." Jack half laughed. "That's absurd. He doesn't go anywhere." Stella held her hands wide. "Apparently he does." Jack looked like he was about to say something else, but was cut off by the car behind beeping when Jack didn't immediately move forward to fill the gap as the traffic rolled forward a car's length. "I knew we should have taken the M4 route," he muttered. Stella shook her head, incredulous. It had been her suggestion that they take the A303, and she couldn't believe he hadn't held in that comment in light of the whole missing dad fiasco. They drove on in silence for a while, the car warming up as their dodgy air conditioning failed to compete with the rising sun. She and Jack had already had a row after she'd admitted being a bit nervous about seeing Sonny. The reason they were currently driving down to Cornwall was to pick up their 13-year-old son, who, at the end of her tether, Stella had sent to stay with her parents for a fortnight. Jack had sighed and replied, quite haughtily in Stella's opinion, "Well, it should never have got this far in the first place. We should have dealt with it at home." "You can keep saying that, Jack, but you weren't there. You're never there to see what a pain he is. You waltz in the door at 7:30 when it's practically bedtime anyway." "I do not waltz in the door." Stella had wanted to say that he very much did waltz in the door, but they'd been over this 1,000 times already. That was how her and Jack's relationship had been for the last few weeks. She tried countless times to explain to him the unrelenting frustration of every night trying to force their 13-year-old to get off his phone and do his homework. Stella's own deadlines pressing down on her, stress mounting. Until the evening that Sonny had sworn he was doing his physics project, but was just hiding his phone behind half a papier-mâché Vesuvius. Furious, Stella had whipped the phone off him, deleted the game he was playing, and every other one, and changed the password to her iTunes account so he couldn't download anything else. "You stupid bitch!" Sonny had shouted at her, and then he'd looked immediately at the floor, his face rigid.